Hello, this is a blog of biographies done by my secondary 2 students from the KRSS 2006 batch, and they interviewed their grandparents or parents or relatives, and they had to type up these projects for English and history. And they have these stories with them now. So I want to encourage you to spend time with your relatives, especially your parents, and find about your roots so that you can have your grandfather's stories. Now, here, these students have given permission, their relatives have given permission, so I've put this up as a repository. You can browse and read through these interviews. They range from 700 to 1,000 words, and the students did it on their own. The interviews might have been conducted in their mother tongue, their dialect or Malay, and they were able to reach out to their grandparents or parents. So go and have a look. KRSS Class of 2008 mystory.blogspot.com. Now, if you have a look at it, you will also be able to find old photographs that I have taken of the students. For example, we did an archaeological dig in the school garden. Here you see Uncle Mahdi burying the artifacts prepared for the classes. There was a mound of sand in the school garden at the back, right next to the canal, and each class was scheduled to go down. They used gardening implements to search for these artifacts. And when they had unearthed these artifacts, they were able to ask questions about the artifacts, to ask who, what, where, when, perhaps together, why or how. And they did it according to the features of civilization. Yes, they wanted to study whether the civilization at this imaginary Kent-rich civilization had a form of government, whether it had occupations, whether it had some form of science or arts, whether it had religion, whether it had a form of writing. And now we have added the 6th feature, which is trade. So these students, they did this archaeological dig during their history lessons, and they examined the artifacts one by one. So this was 1E3, 1E4, and 1E5 that entered the school in 2005. All right. So this is what they experience as history students. Just handling imitation artifacts, just examining it, just asking questions, just looking for clues and evidence. So these are very important skills, and I hope that they gain something from it. As you look back at these photographs, you realize that our school uniform was quite different, and also the school surroundings. So here, even these photographs become a primary source of what Kentridge Secondary School was like in the past. Okay, so you can see that the house t-shirts had a solid color. They were fully colored, and whether they were from Auriga or Cassiopeia or Orion or Pegasus or Lyra, these were their PE t-shirts. So I hope you enjoy this trip down memory lane, just looking what we had in the past. Now the canal has been very beautifully renovated and refurbished and just reopened. Another type of lesson they had was to study artifacts. Now these were my personal artifacts from my time. So I put them on different tables in the humanities room, and the students went ahead and came to the room to study artifacts that were made of different materials. For example, natural materials like wood or metal. And some of these materials were from my childhood. Other materials were from my parents' growing up years. And each class had these artifacts to examine and ask questions about. Who owned this? What is the material? Why was it made this way? What was its purpose? So here are some very important skills that historians have to practice. And this is what the students in Cambridge Humanities Department had a chance to examine when they interacted with artifacts. And they also were tested. You can see that there's a box of envelopes that was labeled. So one of their tests was actually learning and examining about artifacts. Now, they were also brought on learning journeys. So we brought them to the Kranji War Memorial, and you can see the structure of the cemetery. The main structure is shaped like the tail and wing of the aircraft, and the different parts of the cemetery house the remains of the defenders of Singapore during the World War II Japanese invasion. The names inscribed on this wall are actually the names of the Malay Muslims. And if you look carefully, you will be able to see Lieutenant Adnan's name up there. And behind, there were different soldiers of different ethnicities being buried. And in some cases, there was no identity of the soldier, so there was no surety. You can see this one has the man's name and it's in a different script. So those who were Hindu, those who were Muslim, those who came from the Christian nations, they are buried at different parts of the cemetery. It was a beautiful, glorious, sunshiny day when we went, and it was very meaningful to go and pay our respects and learn more about the defenders of modern Singapore. Also resting at the Kranji War Cemetery are the former presidents. So those are two important grave sites. We also went to the Changi Prison Chapel. This is a replica. The original Changi Chapel has been dismantled and it has been brought to Canberra. This is just a replica that it's a reminder of the tenacity and the faith of the European and different nationalities who were interred at Changi Prison. And of course, the students enjoyed playing games. The third place we brought the students to was the Labrador Park defenses. Now, these defenses are shut today. They have not been reopened yet. So in 2006, they were ready for our visit. And here we were able to go into the underground bunkers and look at a recreation of what it must have been like. You can see replicas of shells, explosive shells, and guns. Okay, so this was our southern defense against possible attack by the enemy from the seafront to the south. And these bunkers are for the soldiers to retreat to and as a form of defense. So here you see actual replicas of the machines and the mortar and the artillery and the uniforms. So we are waiting for them to refurbish it and renovate it and reopen it to the public. And it was a very meaningful time for the students. They were Sec 2 when they went on this learning journey. So on this blog, you can find photographs of what life was like in secondary 2 in 2006. And lastly, I have put up there my great-grandfather's story. My father interviewed my grandfather about why my ancestor left China in the 1880s and headed to Nanyang, the South Seas of Singapore. So I hope you will go and visit this site and get to know more about your ancestors, and why not interview your ancestors or your parents today. Have a good day. Enjoy learning.